were on the show Friday, and we had to cut our conversation short. But then on Friday night, Starship 12-flight test mission V3. Your reaction to how that went?
Well, listen, the fact that it was a brand new vehicle, brand new engines, the most advanced engineering ever built by humans, it was incredible success. What people have to realize is that you can't test a rocket a little bit at a time. You have to test the entire system. And the fact that the launch took off with its version 3 of its engines and the entire vehicle, the largest, most powerful, engineering system ever launched by humans, it was great. We're going to see Starship making incremental flights, getting better and better until the time where the entire vehicle is reflyable, refuelable on orbit, and becomes a platform to go to the moon, go to Mars, go beyond.
Why Starship is also its capability and payload to orbit for first Starlink and then orbital data center. I wrote at the beginning of the week about how clear the S1 was about the limitation of SpaceX's current access to compute and how much it's going to need in the future. You then had an exchange with Elon Musk, I think in the last 24 hours, right? Or 48 hours about that exact issue. What was the point you were trying to relay to Elon there?
The point is that he's not just this is not just a rocket company, right? This is a vertically integrated satellite network, global broadband, sovereign communications, AI compute, and ultimately off-planet infrastructure. He is building a hyperscaler and not just an AI system. So his ability to succeed as a company goes beyond just the Grok as an AI system. He's providing the infrastructure for a large number of the frontier labs out there. And what people need to realize about this company is it isn't just a little bit ahead of the entire launch industry on planet Earth. It's orders of magnitude ahead beyond anything else. And everything we hold of value on Earth, metals, minerals, energy, real estate, is in near infinite quantities in space. And so what we're buying is the next, the global economy, 2.0 and 3.0 as we look at buying into SpaceX.
Go global, Peter, because I know you can, and we're pleased that you do. There's a lot of hand-wringing and almost people feeling that at every turn the US uses China as the excuse as to why we need less regulation, why we need to go full throttle, why we need to win, quote unquote. How much are you seeing a space race, US, China, and how much has SpaceX managed to dominate there vis-a-vis not just US competition?
We humans love competition, and it drives us forward. And so if you think about this, it was the US versus the Soviets and the Russians in the 50 years ago. We're doing that same thing again. But this time, it's beyond just a political race. It's an economic race. Again, we're building out huge revenue engines as we're going forward. Whether it's going to be mining the moon for resources or mining the asteroids for resources, we're also going to be building out a level of global compute infrastructure in Earth orbit. And again, no one was talking about this a year ago. And today, every major hyperscaler is. We see Anthropic buying into XAI's or SpaceX's data centers on Earth, but they're also going to need the compute that's going to be given from orbit.
Look, you're a man who's driven by trying to solve the world's most pressing problems. You're also a man who happened to have got into SpaceX and Google and other key companies very early. We're at this moment where people are questioning how it helps them. How is this being democratized in some way? How are we solving the world's greatest problems for everyone, not just the few, Peter? How are you thinking about that, particularly when we look at a listing of a company that is already so valuable? Is there much left on the table in terms of democratization and buying of shares by retail investors?
Sure. So let's hit the point you made first about solving the world's biggest problems. The single most powerful thing we humans have is our intelligence. And we're about to see human intelligence increased by not just 10 or 100-fold, a millionfold, a billionfold, right? It's the ability for us to discover breakthroughs across physics and chemistry and biology, material sciences. All of these things are going to be driven by the use of these AI systems. And so I don't think people understand how rapidly the economy is going to grow on the back of AI. We're going to be solving aging as a fundamental, right? What is it worth if you can add 30 healthy years, and then those extra 30 healthy years on your life buy you the next 50 healthy years or 100 healthy years? What is that worth to individuals? When we get to room temperature superconducting, when we get to new ways of growing food, twice as fast, 5 times faster, healthier, we're heading towards a world of abundance across everything: food, water, energy, healthcare, education, all of these elements. When I interviewed Elon on my Moonshots podcast at the beginning of this year, and then again in March, what he talked about, and I believe this, is we're going to see double and then triple-digit GDP growth. And this is happening not because we're working harder or we humans are smarter. It's on the back of AI and humanoid robotics. One of the things he said was that we're entering a world where AI and robots are going to create so much product, so much availability that we could not want enough. Now, this sounds like a techno-utopian vision, but we have to realize that all of the progress that we've seen in humanity, we're living lives today that are godlike compared to our parents and grandparents. Yes.
Let me jump on something you just said. Thank you. You spoke January 6th with Elon at length, and then again in March. Yeah. And what you just said about robots, there is broad speculation right now about the prospect of a post-IPO SpaceX merging with Tesla.
100%.
On January 30th. On January 30th, I reported they'd held talks prior to the XAI transaction. You say 100%. I mean, what are you learning from those two conversations? What do you know about how real that is, why it makes sense?
It makes sense because it consolidates Elon's control. Today, as reported in the IPO in the S1, there's super voting rights that he has, and of course his inside owners, I think it's like 80+% voting control. He doesn't have that in Tesla. And by combining the companies, I think he'll have that. He'll have the ability to operate across all of this infrastructure, and a fleet of cyber cabs, all of the Tesla vehicles out there that have compute capability on them, have power on them as well. We're creating a global infrastructure on the ground and in space. So it just consolidates control. It makes his ability to implement his vision a lot more efficient. So, I put it as not a matter of if and only a matter of when those two companies come together. And also because they're valued public companies, you can make that merger happen a lot easier than if you're combining private companies and arguing about valuation.
Peter.